So here we start the question and answer session. Repeating, this is for those who are registered with us. We are taking server-based courses with these candidates. In case they will be having any question or any doubt or any explanation they need, they are sending us questions at regular intervals, and we are taking these questions for interaction. So I would like to have some raise hands, if any. In case anybody wants to discuss with me, they can raise the hand. But again, repeating, please make a note that in case you are having a background noise, then please don't raise the hand, because your background noise will disturb whole of the class. Now, let's start the session. Now, these are some questions which we got from our registered candidates who are taking different server-based courses. Some questions have been put by Dr. Pappu, some with Dr. Nanda. There is a doctor from Pakistan also. His name is Dr. Anas. These are the questions, and we got some questions from Dr. Swapnil and Dr. Prakash. We will discuss today. So please make a note that this is the question and answer session only. These candidates are already taking our detailed ultrasound courses, and these are some questions or explanations needed from our registered candidates. So this is not a training course what we are taking right now, but is a question and answer session for our registered candidates who are taking different online server-based courses. So let's get started with the now.
Hear your notification.
The first question from Dr. Pappu is that these are the copy pasted questions. We got the questions on our helpline number, and we just copied and pasted in for this format over here. So Dr. Pappu is posting what happened on screen when we are reducing or increasing the PRF on grayscale or color Doppler. So the point is over here that this doctor is taking physics and machine settings. Probably this is a new registration who is taking the physics and machine settings right now, and he wants to know what is the use of the PRF. So I am concluding this question in one line. What is the PRF settings for? Second question from Dr. Nanda is UAG grading of varicocele. Probably this candidate is taking small parts course that includes the breast, scrotum, and the thyroid. And here comes the question, the grading of varicocele. And next question from the same candidate is that UAG grading of renal parenchymal changes. So this candidate, Dr. Nanda, is already taking two courses. What I can see from the question, one is from the scrotum and another is from the abdomen. So this is a candidate who is taking different courses from our website. Now, Dr. Anas Wazir from Pakistan is posting, can we diagnose uterine prolapse by ultrasound? Now, this question I got from different candidates. prolapse can we diagnose on ultrasound, and if yes, how we can diagnose? So this is not the Dr. Anas's question only. These are different candidates question, common question, I will say. And then there are some common questions from Dr. Swapnil and Dr. Prakash. Adenomyosis, ovarian complex cyst, benign and ovarian dermoid cyst. Please comment on the adenomyosis. So we will discuss these questions today. So let's get started. In case anybody is having any more questions, they can raise the hand. Once they will raise the hand, we will unmute their computers. So I'll be waiting for a hand raise for next 1 minute. So now the first question was the PRF, pulse repetitive frequency. Those who are taking the physics and machine settings will understand what we are talking about. PRF, pulse repetitive frequency. First of all, what is a pulse repetitive frequency? Anybody? Please raise the hand, or they can comment in the comment box. So I am giving you two options. In case you are having a background noise, please comment in comment box. If you don't have any background noise and you want to participate directly, then raise the hand. We will unmute your computer, but again repeating, there should be no background noise from your side. So coming to the point, PRF, pulse repetitive frequency. Anybody having any idea what is this PRF, pulse repetitive frequency? What is a PRF? What is PRF, pulse repetitive frequency? Yes, now I am getting comments. Let me see what people are thinking of this pulse repetitive frequency. So the pulse repetitive frequency is, first of all, I have to understand the machine. This physics and machine settings is a vast ocean. And unfortunately, in this Indian subcontinent, we are not much stressing on this, but we have to. So the pulse, I am going to the comment box. Yeah. Pulse repetitive frequency is the, let me see what the people are posting. Pulse sent by sound in 1 second. Pulses sent by sound in 1 second. In that is one comment. Another from Dr. Ane Dubey is interval between pulses. Yes, this is the right thing, interval between pulses. Now, whenever machine is sending the beam, let me take an example. This thing we have discussed in detail in physics and machine settings. Now the question is posted. We have to take in very short, brief answer we have to take. Now, for example, the machine has sent the beam at 1 p.m. or a.m. Let it be 1. So 1 a.m. it has sent. Now the next pulse will be sent at 2 p.m. So the interval between the first and the second is 2. Okay. So if we are sending the beam at 1 and if the next beam is sent at 3, then the interval between the 1 and 3, sorry, it is 2. So the pulse is repeated after 2 hours. In machine, there is no hours. We are there dealing with microseconds, micromilliseconds. No. Let's take an example now. Now, the duration, if I will reduce the duration, First of all, what for this duration is. By this will be determined the duty factor. Now, I will not go very deep. The point here is that I am sending the beam at 1 and I am sending next beam at 3. So I am giving a listening period to machine to decode, to listen to the echoes. I am giving complete 2 hours. More the listening period, please listen carefully, more the listening period of the machine, what I am setting, less the machine will get confused. Because it is sending the beam, then it has to listen to the returned echoes. If I will reduce the listening period, machine cannot decode. Machine will get confused. There will be overlapping. Now, the question. There are three, first, before the question, there are 3 modes in machine. First is B mode, then it is color mode, then we do have pulse mode. Now this PRF is of more concern in color and pulse also. Practical implementations. Now, if I am increasing the pulse repetitive frequency, listen to me carefully. Here comes the question. If I am increasing the pulse repetitive frequency, this is ARDMS question, board type question. If you will ever appear in an exam of an ARDMS, that is an accreditation exam of US, one question from this PRF is always there. Now the question is, if I will increase the pulse repetitive frequency, am I sending more pulses or less pulses per second or per millisecond, anything? Listen to me carefully. One is the duration between the 2 pulses. Another is the frequency of the pulses sent. This frequency, this PRF has nothing to do with the overall frequency of the machine. Please don't get confused here. Frequency, the overall frequency has nothing to do with PRF. And PRF has nothing to do with the frequency of the machine. This PRF is not the frequency what we are setting for an obese patient. You know, there we are decreasing in a thin patient. That is a different thing. That is the frequency of the transducer what we are setting. And here we are talking of pulse repetitive frequency. Now the practical implementations. Now see how practically it is working. Those who are not taking any course with us, I don't think that they will understand much. This ultrasound is a very vast ocean. This physics and machine settings from our server is taking about 1 month. So again repeating, in case you are not registered with us, you will not understand the whole concept what we are discussing now, because we are taking now the question and answer sessions only. Now the point is, new registrant Dr. Papu, please pay attention now. Now the practical implementation of the PRF. When I am working in color mode with a low PRF, first of all, I have to understand if I am decreasing the PRF, the sensitivity of catching, the sensitivity of catching the flow will increase. This is very important point. Please note this down. That is why whenever I have to scan an area with a low flow, for example, in RPOC, retained product of conception, why we are not able to understand diagnose it properly? Because we have to set the PRF also there. We have to decrease the PRF in case of a slow flow. Now, if I am dropping the PRF, if I am decreasing the PRF, I will be picking more of flow. Now, it will look like in color lasing over here. With decrease in the PRF, I am increasing the sensitivity of the flow to get picked. That is why I will be having an overlap of colors. It will look like an lasing over here. So this is the practical use of the PRF. But in case I will increase the PRF, I will be having more settled color. Now, you will be thinking now, I'm spelling your brain also. You may be thinking, I have to always and always keep PRF high so that I will be seeing a settled color. No, it depends what you are scanning. In case you are scanning a low flow, then you have to decrease the PRF. So the moral of this story, the one-line answer is that with a low PRF, I am having more of colors. And with the high PRF, I am having less of colors. That is in color mode. Now, when I am switching from color to pulse mode, what actually this PRF is overdoing here? Now this is a scale over here. This is the scale. This is the scale. And this scale is now the PRF in the pulse mode. If my PRF, this is the PRF now in pulse mode. If the PRF, if the scale is low, what I mean by low, if this is set for, how much is over here? 30, and it is maybe up to 35. These peaks are getting cutted. So first I need to set this baseline down below. Those who are taking the color Doppler will understand me. Then I have to set the pulse repetitive frequency. This scale is now the PRF when I am switching from color to pulse. Then I have to increase it. If I will be increasing it from 30 to maybe 100, these tall peaks will not be cutted, will be settled, will be starting settling down. Now see, these are settling down over here. So if I will further increase it, I will not get cutted tall peaks over here. So this is the implementation of this PRF in color and this pulse mode. Now, when you will decrease or increase the PRF being in a B mode, what will happen? You will see more of, like a high contrasted image on the screen. So better to keep your PR, you have to set the PRF in the B mode. But we are not very much concerned of the PRF, because once we setting the PRF in the grayscale, we are not changing it at regular intervals. But in this pulse and this color, we have to set the pulse repetitive frequency. So this was a long answer to a one-line question. So now we will take next question. What was the next question? Yeah, varicocele. Grading of varicocele. Probably it was the grading of varicocele. Let me go to the question over there. The next question was the USG grading of varicocele. and the UAG grading of the renal parenchymal changed by Dr. Nanda. So I have to go now to a PPT, which is a very, very big topic of this kidney. So let me go to the kidney class, which is over here. And let me now go to the, this is the complete class of the kidney, and the question was this: classification of renal parenchymal echogenicity. Now see, first of all, you have to understand, let me take it, the crop, yeah. Now we have to first understand the echogenicity, when I can label this kidney as normal and abnormal. First of all, the normal kidney is hypoechoic as compared to liver. This thing we have discussed in detail in our class. Now, if it is isoechoic as compared to liver, it is also normal. So here normal is whether it is hypoechoic or isoechoic when I am comparing it with the liver on the right side, and I can compare spleen on the left side. Now, the problem is if the liver, now see, hyperechoic compared to liver. Now the problem arises when the kidney parenchymal echogenicity, not the central sinus, but the parenchymal echogenicity is hyperechoic as compared to liver. That is abnormal. Now, if it is isoechoic to renal sinus, that is very much abnormal. So first we have to understand that we should have a scale with which I can say that this is 1 meter and this is 1.5 meter. And this scale for the kidney is the comparison with the liver. So this way I can make out whether I am dealing with a normal kidney or an abnormal kidney. Now, hypoechoic, just this picture over here, ultrasound picture, hypoechoic, isoechoic. Now see, this is less echogenic than the liver. So this is absolutely normal, and this isoechoic is also normal, but problem is over here because this parenchyma is hyperechoic as compared to the liver. So this is abnormal. Now, the question was the grading. Now on ultrasound, this echogenicity, this parenchyma, cortex, this thing we have discussed in detail in our class, server-based class. Now, the question is, can I make a staging on ultrasound? I will say no. Ultrasound alone cannot make a staging over here because staging of CKD depends on the glomerular filtration rate. I am doing ultrasound, so I don't know how much is the GRF. If GRF is 90 or greater, that is 1. If it is between 60 to 90, it is second. And if it is between 30 and 60, it is 4th. And if it is less than 15, it is grade 5th. Now, what you have to label on ultrasound is that how much I am having the cortical thickness. Now, you know where you have to measure the cortical thickness. I will not repeat it over it because this thing is taken in very great detail in the class. So if it is less than 6 millimeters, it is more reliable than the overall length, which people are thinking that if I am having a decreased kidney, that is going in favor of CKD. No, we have to measure, we have to not see only the length, but we have to see the cortical thickness. And if it is less than 5 millimeters, that is more reliable than the reduced renal length alone, and increased renal cortical echogenicity, which we just now discussed it. So that is the one part, the echogenicity comparison. Then poor visibility of the renal pyramids and the renal sinus, marginal irregularities of the kidney. So not only we have to compare, you have to start with comparison. I mean the echogenicity comparison between the liver and the kidney. You have to start from there, but you don't have to restrict over there only. You have to see all these things. You have to see for any papillary calcifications. Then you have to report it. Your report should be detailed one. Not the kidney is normal in shape, size, and ecotexture. It is based in this and this, but no calculus cyst is there. CMD is made. No, you have to mention in great detail this report, and you have to mention over there these all things that will decide the severity of CKD. Now, when you are putting color, now what abnormal you can see over there is that the kidney vasculature is reduced, or if you will be able to, I know within next few months, you will be now starting the Doppler also. So if there is increased resistive index, now you know what is the resistive index, then you have to report that also. So the moral is that on the basis of ultrasound only, you cannot stage the CKD. You have to report all these things. Then the urologist or nephrologist, whosoever is treating the patient, will stage the disease as per the GFR, that is the glomerular filtration rate. So again, this was the answer for the next question. Now, the third question. What was the third question? Let me go to the question now. So the third question, we usually take 2 to 3 questions only, but today we have got more questions, so I will try to take all questions or as many as possible. So I don't want to finish up with all questions in one-line answers. So now the main question. Why main question? Because this question has been posted by many candidates. Dr. Prakash also has posted this question, and Dr. Anas Wazir, who is from Pakistan taking over courses, is also posting this question. Can we diagnose a uterine prolapse by ultrasound? Now, yes, comments please. Can we diagnose ultrasound, the prolapse on ultrasound, and what should be the probe used, or how should I scan? We are having transabdominal, transperineal, transvaginal. We are having probes also, TDS, TS. So how to scan first? Before jumping on to how to diagnose, we should know how to scan it. So any comments? Dr. Swapnil is posting TAS, transabdominal scan. And Dr. Swapnil is also posting on Valsalva maneuver by TAS. More suggestions, more comments? More comments, please. How to diagnose a prolapse, uterine prolapse? I'll be waiting for 30 seconds only for any comments. So please be active also. So you can post in the comment. Now, Dr. Jitender is posting TAS, transabdominal scan. These are the comments which I am seeing right now. So comments are coming over here. TAS, Dr. Jitender, TAS. More comments? More comments? Waiting for 10 seconds. More comments. TAS, Dr. Yadav is posting. Dr. P. Yadav is posting TAS, transabdominal scan. Next. Next. No. No to all. It is not transabdominal scan. This is the point. This is not the transabdominal scan. Then how should I scan then? No to transabdominal scan. No. No, no. I am waiting for you and I'm setting the screen also. So quickly, please. It is not the transabdominal scan. Yes. Anybody? Now, it is not a transabdominal scan. Is it a TVS? Is it a transvaginal scan? No. Dr. Mega, very good. Transperineal scan. Dr. Dr. Mega, transperineal scan. So the first point is that we have to scan transperineally. We have to scan transperineally to diagnose a prolapse. Now, let me increase this. We have to keep this thing in our mind. What is this? First of all, the scan should be transperineal, not a transabdominal, not a transvaginal. It should be transperineal scan. Now, I'm setting this also. Now, the practical approach of ultrasound in assessment of the pelvic organ prolapse. I will say pelvic organ prolapse. I will not say uterine prolapse. It is the pelvic organ prolapse. The normal female pelvis, we have to see first what wire is transperineally. We have to see. The bladder will be here, transperineal scan. The bladder will be here. This will be the urethra. You have to understand the anatomy first. Then only we can decode. This will be the urethra. This will be the vagina over here. And this will be the rectum over here. So I have to locate first all these structures on a transperineal scan. So keep these things in your mind. You have to see all these. Then we have to draw. We don't have to draw. There is an imaginary line. So the translabial ultrasound can objectively quantify the uterovaginal prolapse. The inferior margin of the symphysis pubis, serves as a conventional line of reference. This is the line of the reference against which the maximum descent of bladder, uterus, cul-de-sac, and the rectal ampulla on Valsalva. Please make a note. On Valsalva monovier can be measured. So we have to see with reference with this line over there. And this way you can diagnose a prolapse or you can rule out a prolapse. So first of all, the probe, then you have to see the anatomy first. the normal anatomy where the urethra is, pubis symphysis, then you have to draw an imaginary line over there. This is not the drawing on screen. This is an imaginary line. Then you have to see for the descent. So this was the question posed by many candidates, uterine prolapse, uterine prolapse on ultrasound. So no to transabdominal, translabial scan, we can make a diagnosis of a prolapse. So now let us see the next question. What was the next question? Next question. Yes. Next question is from adenomyosis. Adenomyosis. Now the question is very long. This is the copy pasted message. It is this is the question posted by Dr. Prakash and Dr. Swapnil. Adenomyosis vary in size. I am reading it as it is. Adenomyosis vary in size and echogenicity with the cycle. That accurately differentiate it from with a fibroid. So do I need to call the patient twice for making the accurate diagnosis? If yes, after how many days? So the point here now, the continuity of the same question is, please comment on the onset of adenomyosis. Do previous surgery, previous patient of pregnancy or patient helps us to rule out adenomyosis. Do I have any gynecologist over in this session? Please raise the hand. We will discuss this adenomyosis in pregnancy. We will discuss how to, we have already taken this thing in detail. So let's be more of interactive now. Dr. Mega has raised the hand. We are sending the unmute invitation to Dr. Mega. Yes, Dr. Mega.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Are you audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. You are Dr. Mega?
Yes, sir.
Yes. You are a gynecologist?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah. You are taking any course from us?
Yes, sir.
Which course right now you are in?
Abdominal ultrasound.
Abdominal ultrasound. You have not yet completed the pelvic ultrasound. I mean the gynae ultrasound.
I had attended the CME.
Not the CME. CME is a
Not
small
the
thing. 2-3 hours only. Okay. You are a gynecologist. Now, let us see this adenomyosis. The question is that the adenomyosis picture is changing. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree? Now, the picture is changing. Let us discuss. I will not show you now the slides because enough of slides are being shown in the server courses. And there is the Blackboard session and everything is over there. So let us discuss today the question. The question is adenomyosis. The picture of the adenomyosis will change from maybe within 2 days only. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes,
I may be right, I may be wrong.
Yes, sir.
For example, there is a patch that can be fibroid, that can be adenomyosis. So I am elaborating the question. That can be a fibroid, that can be an adenomyosis. Now, if it is adenomyosis, it will change maybe overnight. But if it is fibroid, it will be static maybe for a month. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir. Right.
101% I am right. Keep this point in your mind once for all. Now the question posted is, how many days I have to recall the patient? I have scanned a patient today. I want to see whether it is adenomyosis. Do I recall the patient? I mean, rescan the patient after 24 hours or 48 hours? What will be your answer?
So next cycle, maybe.
First of all, I will say to that candidate, please don't behave like a photographer. You have to think more and you have to do less when you are doing ultrasound. Not only the echogenicity change or the size change is there, but first of all, the clinical features. Now, Dr. Mega, tell me, if there is intermenstrual bleeding and there is a patch in the uterus, I mean in the myometrium, is it going in favor of fibroid or adenomyosis? If there is intermenstrual bleeding.
Intermenstrual more in favor of adenomyosis.
Adenomyosis, point number one. Point number second. If I am having multiple patches, is it going more in favor of adenomyosis or multiple fibroids?
Adenomyosis. Multiple
patches. Not diagnostic.
Multiple patches, small patches, more in favor of adenomyosis.
Okay, done. Second point also. So if there is any associated ovarian cyst, a complex type of ovarian cyst, not a very big, is it going in favor of adenomyosis? Yes or no? Because yes, what is an adenomyosis? Adenomyosis is an ectopic implanted endometrium. If there is adenomyosis, there is possibility of having a patch in ovary also. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So now you have to put everything in one basket. Then you have to conclude the case. Then you have to think accordingly. Not like how many hours I have to recall the patient. I actually don't need to recall the patient. In 99 and maybe 99.99% of cases, I don't need to recall the patient. But Dr. Mega, if the patient has been scanned maybe 20 days before, maybe 30 days before by me or somebody else, and he has mentioned that there is a patch in the posterior wall which is measuring 35 millimeters. And today I am scanning the same patient, and in posterior wall, there is now 15 millimeters of the patch. Is it going in favor of fibroid or adenomyosis?
The fibroid size doesn't change so much within 1 month.
Is it going in favor of fibroid or adenomyosis?
Adenomyosis.
That is the point. That is the point I am telling time and again in all classes, and this candidate got confused that we have to recall the patient. We don't have to recall the patient. If there is some report with you and it is not 1 year or 2 years before a report, it's a fresh report, maybe 1 or maybe 2 months. Even in 2 months, the fibroid change will not double or it will not get to half. But in case you want to see yourself, you want to increase your confidence, you can rescan the patient. But if you will rescan the patient, will the size of adenomyosis, I mean the adenomyotic patch, will it increase or decrease? Dr. Mega will answer this.
So it depends. It might increase, it might decrease, or it may remain same as well.
Very good. So don't expect that it will decrease. Don't expect that it will increase. It will either increase or it will decrease, but it will not remain same. Now, how many days? If you will rescan after 2 days, it will not add on much of the confidence because it can vary in a small size. So better to rescan after next menstrual cycle.
Yes, sir.
Dr.
After next cycle.
Right? So, but the point is, we don't need to recall the patient if we will put everything in basket. I mean the echogenicity.
And we need to correlate clinically also the symptoms.
First of all, we have to see the patient not like a photographer, but like a doctor.
Yes, sir.
That is what I started with. There will be an intermenstrual bleeding. There will be a pain. Why fibroid? Unless and until it is not compressing onto the adjacent areas, it will not give pain to patient. And if there is a pain, that pain in adenomyosis is typical. Is that dull, Dr. Bega? Dull, persistent, yes or no?
Yes, a dull persistent pain.
No. Think first. In case of adenomyosis, will it be dull and persistent pain?
Actually, it is not dull, it's a spasmodic kind of pain. Like...
Cyclic. Am I right? It will be cyclic. Because what this adenomyosis is, this is also the endometrium which is ectopically implanted. Whenever the patient will bleed, this adenomyotic patch will also bleed, because they are hormonally connected. So whenever the adenomyotic patch will also bleed, patient will have pain. Now, Dr. Mega, why pain? Why pain?
So because the endometrium is there in the myometrium, it is implanted.
Very good. It is because the adenomyotic patch is in the wall, not in the cavity. Whenever it will bleed,
it will lead to pelvic congestion and
it will get pulled up over there. The blood will get pulled up in the wall. That you call congestion. It is not actually the congestion. It is the pooling of the blood in the wall. That is why patient will have pain. So the moral of the story is that you have to see the patient, not you have to see the screen only. This is the point. So I hope that I have replied to that question. In case have I missed any part of the question? I don't think no, I have missed anything. Let me go to the PPT again. Yes. So almost everything is taken. Now see, ovarian complex cyst and ovarian dermoid. This is the question. Both of them don't show color. How to actually differentiate it from a complex benign? So I will request Dr. Prakash and Dr. Swapnil, whosoever has posted this question, to go to the class again. Which class? I will say, let me go to the female pelvis. If it is not there, but it has to be there. It has to be there. So varicocele is also. So we are not taken varicocele yet. 247. Yes. So there we have the differential diagnosis of this is the server. Whatever I have opened right now is the server. We are having the differential diagnosis of dermoid and endometrioma. So probably they have not gone to this class yet, or they have not completed. So I will request them to complete it. They will get the answer. The complex ovarian cyst is over there. But the important point is this slide over here, which we have discussed in about a half an hour for this slide on our server, how to differentiate a malignant from the benign. So I will say that there are 10 rules. So actually there are 10 points, 5 here and 5 here. So you have to see to the size. If size is more than this or less than this, then it is going in favor of this. Now again, you have to put all these in one basket, then only you can say whether this is benign and whether this is malignant. If I will start discussing this slide, this will take about half an hour. It is there on the server. Then once you will complete it, you will get your answer. So you have not gone to this class yet. So I will request you to go to this class And even if you have gone to this class, there is a provision or revision also. So revise this, you will get your answer, how to make a diagnosis of endometrioma versus dermoid versus a hemorrhagic cyst. We have discussed that in great detail. And on the top, this malignant versus benign. Now, the last question was from scrotum varicocele. So grading of varicocele. So the candidate has understood varicocele. Now he wants to see how to grade it. 59, probably it has to be there. Yeah. So this is the varicocele which we have taken in detail. Now the point is the varicocele grading. First of all, the evaluation part. How to evaluate the baseline grayscale study in spine position and measurement of the diameter of veins as well as the total diameter of the plexus. Now you know what wire is. Then the next is you have to put a Doppler to see the reflex during Valsalva. And the important point is that you have to repeat in standing position also. So the grading of the varicocele, probably this is not on server. We have added it in maybe last week only. We have added it. So that is why I am taking it in great detail. Grade 1. Grade 1 is that no dilatation of intrascrotal veins. Intrascrotal veins, no dilatation. Then reflex in the spermated cord veins in the inguinal region during Valsalva. That is grade 1. This is during Valsalva. During Valsalva. Grade 2. Prominent veins at upper pole of testes. Upper pole only. And reflex at upper pole during Valsalva. Again, during Valsalva. Grade 2. Grade 3. No major dilatation in spine position. That is why we have to scan in spine as well as standing. So no major dilatation in spine position. Dilated veins to the lower pole of the testes seen only in standing position. Reflex at lower pole during Valsalva maneuver. And the grade 4 will be dilated veins even in spine position. Now see how important it is to scan in spine as well as standing position. And reflex during Valsalva. That is grade 4th. So the grade 5th is that we are having dilated veins and now we are having a reflex without Valsalva. So you have to keep two things in mind. First is that you have to scan in spine as well as standing. Then you have to see whether you are getting these dilated veins with Valsalva or without Valsalva also. Then accordingly, you can make a diagnosis whether you are in grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, or grade 5. So this way, you can diagnose, make a grading of varicoceles. So this was all for now. So we'll be sending you next link of the interactive sessions very soon. Whenever we will announce it, you will be getting an update of our interactive sessions. And now I am getting some comments how to register for the courses. I am time and again saying that you have to go to the server or you have to call us. Again, I am showing you something which will clear each and every doubt. So there is Mr. Google. You have to go to Mr. Google only. You have to, sorry, you have to go to the Google and you have to type BILMED, BILMED.net. Just go to BILMED.net, BILMED. There are multiple courses over there. So these are the multiple courses over there. You can go to the course, and if you want us to register, because these are the server-based courses, these are the phone numbers. You can get it from the website only. And this is the helpline number. So the numbers are there. Even you can register yourself directly without calling us via the server, which is BILMED.net. Thank you very much. God bless all of you. Bye-bye.